Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am in the middle of, well, getting ready to do my training session for the day, and I thought I'd pop on and talk about a tool that I use a lot in my own training and also with the programming of my athletes, complexes. Now, we're going to talk about barbell variations, dumbbell variations, kettlebell variations, primarily going to show you the original complexes, barbells and dumbbells, and talk a little bit about their history as well. So when we're looking at complexes, it's important that we first pay homage to the inventor of them, Istvan Dvorak. And he was a Romanian strength coach that came over to the United States, and through a long history, which I definitely encourage you guys to read about, but is beyond the scope of this video, Istvan used them for the preparation of elite athletes and also athletes at Johnson County Community College. At the end of the day, you can't talk about complexes without giving Istvan Dvorak his due. Now, how can you use complexes? Not really an easy question, because you can use them as part of a warm-up. You can use them as a standalone workout. You can use them as even a metabolic conditioning session or a finisher, if that's what you want to call it. You can use it as a teaching mechanism for those that want to learn more about the weightlifting movements. There are so many different uses. Now, benefits, same thing. They not only have teaching benefits of helping you understand how to move the bar fluidly from one position to the next, which is incredibly important when you're learning weightlifting, but they also offer a tremendous metabolic demand because of the density. You see, what a complex is it's a series of exercises performed one right after the other. Now, this is not the same as a combo. For example, a combo or combination exercise might be a dumbbell curl to press. That is a combination or hybrid exercise. When I talk about a complex, that could be you performing a certain number of repetitions of an RDL, followed by a bent over row, followed by a hang clean, followed by a front squat, followed by a military press. Any of those numbers of exercises performed in series without rest in between them. Now, rep range also matters here, and this is where they get messy because people tend to think, well, what weight should I use? What reps are the best? Weight, you always just want to use a weight that's appropriate for the people that you're using them with. So there are standard guidelines out there. Some say, hey, you should use about 30% of your body weight on the bar. But guys, that is contextual. If you're working with a youth athlete that has never even touched a bar before, or dumbbells, or you're working with an older athlete that also hasn't touched these things or done them, then you need to start just with the bar. I think sometimes we get way too caught up on what should we use, the exact weight. You have to do what's right for your population, and that's why it's important that you always make sure that you think outside the box and big picture. So what I'm going to use here is I got about 40 kilos. That's appropriate for the demonstration. From a rep range standpoint, that will depend on your goal. I have gone as few as 3 reps. Shoot, I've even gone 2 when working with heavier loads to build strength. I have gone with 5 reps, which that's great amount of repetitions for truly teaching because you get so many reps ingrained. You get a little bit of time to work through some habits or sticking points if you're tight, which I certainly will be starting out. And also it's this middle ground where the time under tension is also phenomenal for hypertrophy gains. You could even take it as high as 8 to 10 reps. Now, I personally never program these with any more than 8 reps. Doesn't mean you couldn't, doesn't mean anybody that does is wrong. That's just what I tend to do. So I either go 3, 5, or 8 reps depending on if the goal's fat loss, body composition, metabolic adaptation, hypertrophy, or strength. Now, you also want to make sure that the exercises that you choose, that you're competent in performing them. There is no reason for you to put a front squat and a clean and an RDL together in a complex if you're working with athletes that don't even know how to do any of those well. So I can't state this enough. Before you ever do complexes, make sure your athletes know how to do the movements right to begin with. Now remember, we're looking for good foundational technique. Everybody, of course, is going to squat a little bit differently. Some will be wider than others, a little bit more narrow based on hip structure. But what I'm talking about is, are they getting full depth? Are they able to press overhead without arching their back or jerking the bar up? You've got to make sure that you have great technique. Finally, the way I like to put mine together is I really like to make sure that the bar moves in kind of this sequential order. For example, I would not do a deadlift where I'm actually picking it up onto the floor and then immediately go to a back squat and then back over to a bent over row, that is way too many non-sequential movements with the bar. And when you try to go heavier, it's just gonna be a mess. It's gonna wear out your grip. You're gonna have a lot of issues. So the first example I'm gonna show you is just a simple RDL into a clean, into a front squat. That will be a 3 exercise complex. You can take these complexes to 4 exercises, 5. Usually I cap them off at 6. But why don't we show some examples right now? We'll get into it and have some fun and actually start sweating a bunch. as you can see, two things. One, they do their job. I always get crushed by those complexes. I always start sweating immediately just because the tremendous amount of time under tension and density and the heat. The other thing is I told you we were going to primarily focus on the barbell, but I wanted to show you some dumbbell and kettlebell options there too. Again, the options are limitless in terms of the exercises you include. Just be smart, right? You won't want to include a bunch of power exercises such as clean, snatches, squat jumps, or things that are highly technical in sequence one after another, because you're going to be fatigued, and then eventually that form is going to have some kind of decrement to it and increase the likelihood of injury. So I know N=1, there's always somebody that can do all these different things without getting tired, but the goal is safe and effective training. So make sure more technical exercises are done earlier on. So if I'm doing the split grip snatch, for example, that's not going to be anything past the third exercise for me. And usually it's going to be the first, or sometimes I just like going from the floor first and then ending to the back. You need to find your sequence. Just base it off what your athletes or the individuals you're working with are actually good at. When can you do it? This is inevitably a question. Somebody says, Coach, well, in season or preseason. Guys, you can do it whenever you want. It just depends on your goal. You can do it in season. It might be your warm-up, or it might just be a quick lift. Maybe you got off the plane late and you guys don't have much time before you get to the hotel, or maybe you have a quick pregame lift and you just want to get some kind of neural stimulus. It all just matters on what the goal is, what the level of the people you're working with is, and then what you have at your disposal. But you need to do the research and understand, are your athletes capable of it? Do you understand why you're doing it? Have you tried it yourself first? None of my athletes will ever do a complex that I haven't done myself, and those are some guidelines. So remember, start light, make sure your form's on point, do your due diligence, try it yourself, and then have some fun, pay homage to the greats. These are barbell and dumbbell and kettlebell complexes. Leave a comment below.